The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome everyone. Thank you for attending Golden Shovel's May Esper webinar. My name is Victor Perez and I am Director of Communications with Golden Shovel Agency. This month we are pleased to have Peter Koht, co-owner of OpenCounter, presenting on the topic of organic economic development and permitting assistance. OpenCounter combines Silicon Valley and public sector talent to create best-of-class products for modern governments. The company was incubated at Code for America in 2012 and has since scaled to cities of all sizes across the country. Peter is a civics nerd and an experienced economic development professional. He worked for the city of Santa Cruz, California, where he led a regional broadband policy group and spearheaded the city's open data policy along with initiatives to lower administrative barriers to job creation. Before we begin, if any of you have questions during the webinar, please type them into your questions panel in your GoToWebinar control panel, and we will hold a brief Q&A session at the end. We will also have the slides and the recording available after the webinar. So if you would like to get access, please feel free to let us know, and we will provide you with a copy. Peter, we really appreciate your taking the time to talk with us today. Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Thank you for that kind introduction, Victor. And thank you, everyone, for your time and attention this morning. As Victor mentioned, I worked for the city of Santa Cruz in economic development prior to help starting this company in 2013. Essentially, we're trying to build a modern tool set for economic development professionals to assist applicants with the permitting process. And this was really born out of just the recognition that the public interface to existing permitting systems is a generation or two out of date from the experiences that we have on the consumer internet. When we buy something from Amazon or Google, every step is made to ensure that we're getting the right product and that the experience is consistent. That has not been the case with government permitting and licensing, either in the commercial side, the residential side, or the special event side. The example that I like to use is one of the first people ever to use this software, Zach Davis and Kendra Baker. When they started their ice cream parlor in Santa Cruz, California, they needed 21 separate permits. Some of these they could pull themselves, some of them their contractor needed to do, some of them are at the city, some of them are at the county. Definitely lots of different departments and divisions involved in reviewing this bundle of permits, but each one of these permits was taken on its own. The nature of governments has a series of interrelated silos, essentially. And that's reflected in the software that governments use and the language that governments use when talking about the same project. Public Works views a commercial tenant improvement project one way, building views it another, fire a third, planning a fourth, and finance a fifth. And unfortunately, it's a bit like Rashomon for the principal applicant to figure out all of the angles for commissioning a project and getting it going in a city. And the traditional interfaces to get these permits is in person. The greatest value add that I could do as an economic development professional was setting up meetings with the subject matter experts for folks looking to commission projects in my town, and basically walking through their plans and getting a read from each department on how they were going to process their portion of the project. And that meant a pre-application meeting with planning and building, one with public works, and one public works, building, planning. So you're doing 3 or 4 pre-application meetings, multiple staff members in there. There's a huge staff cost to that. Now, granted, we are publishing data. There's a meeting code, there's a fee schedule, and one could work up their own pro forma if they're land use and policy experts, but that's just not the reality of who's coming to us for services. We had 4,600 businesses in town. 80% of them were less than 5 people, and other than 6 private businesses, all of them were less than 100 full-time equivalents in Santa Cruz. So these are not people that have a site selection expert or a permit jobber. These were not franchisees. These were folks looking to risk capital to build a stronger community. And we were not giving them good interfaces to make good economic decisions that would help with the sustainability of their business and its growth potential. Our intake forms looked a lot like this one. You know, a mixture of workflow, technical information, and a legal declaration. This can easily be replaced by not only a web form, as many companies have done before us, but also, you know, we can look at this body of data and just see where bad information gets into the system. We should not ask a non-professional applicant their APN number or their zoning district. If we have a street address, we can usually intuit that from GIS data. Similarly, we should not be asking location information of this applicant. The city should have that information on file again in GIS. And there's no reason to show them for office use only, either in the upper right-hand corner or in the bottom. Like that's a mixture of audiences for this piece of paper. Actually shows like the resiliency and flexibility of the paper process, but it also, you know, it's tough to navigate if you've got to do 21 of these and you're putting in your name 21 times. It's just an unnecessary burden to job creation. And then what I became obsessed with, because you know, I live in coastal California, and it's the land of, you know, lots of regulation. There's all these overlapping plan developments, specific plans, area plans, on top of an existing zoning ordinance. And it really got to the point where you needed to do a site-specific lookup for almost every address in town to figure out, you know, what was allowed, what the development standards are, if there are prescriptions that have been written into the code over time that reflect the history of the community. And nobody, when they talked about zoning or planning, was really trying to figure out how do we take zoning and planning with all of its complexity, all of its footnotes, and get that into an interface that people can understand. And we think that we've done a good job of doing that over the last 4 years by reading a lot of documents and using, you know, standard data normalization and data analysis tricks from computer science and applying that to land use and zoning. And getting us a little bit closer to algorithmic regulation. So a lot of initial inquiries can be handled online by the website. And then for those folks that need additional help, we put them in touch with the zoning administrator. You know, I was just in Oakland this week. They're one of our clients, and they say that each time staff uses this tool, they're saving like 6 minutes. In Boston, they estimate they're saving like 20 minutes of staff time each time that people are using our zoning portal or our zoning lookup tool in those communities. The other thing is that cities are very good at publishing a sort of what I would call reference guides or reference materials. Both city websites and, you know, documents like this one, which is how to get an engineering permit in Charlotte, North Carolina, another one of our clients. You know, they'll publish all possible ways through, but very few steps have been taken to show what is the actual path of your application through this workflow. And that's what OpenCounter works with our city clients to come up with. Like, we figure out what are the triggers for each branch along this logic tree, ask them in a logical manner, provide explanatory help for why these things might turn on or turn off, and just generally give someone an experience, you know, that's much more akin to what they're used to, again, on the consumer internet. And then finally, you know, it's good that there's agencies like Golden Shovel out there that help with marketing and positioning economic development efforts, because a lot of city websites, again, fall into this bucket of like reference guides. You know, every possible answer is on Charlotte Mecklenburg's website, Mecklenburg County, which is where Charlotte is located. And this page is extremely helpful. But to get to this page that I'm displaying here, you would have to know that, you know, Land Use and Environmental Services Agency, LUISA, is responsible for building permits. And then inside of building permits and code enforcement, you'd have to know to navigate to the Commercial Technical Assistance Center, CTAC. Both of those are only referenced by their acronym in the menu and the information hierarchy of the site. I know that wouldn't happen with, you know, a site built by Golden Shovel, but this is the reality of a lot of city websites that people go to. There's just everything's up there. It's written by the subject matter experts. No attempt has been made to either standardize the voice or to make it functional towards the individuals that are involved in this process. You write differently for an architect or a contractor than you would for a homeowner or a business owner. And again, you'd have to navigate to each of the departments and divisions, figure out, what role they play in your project, or you lean heavily upon the permitting assistance of the economic development team, which in my experience has always been a little underfunded and a little understaffed. And so a lot of this then falls on the applicants to figure out on their own. This is at the same time that they're writing business plans, finding contractors, investing capital. It's a very stressful part of the project, and there's just not a lot of help for non-experts to navigate the permitting licensing space. So I wanted to just kind of go through, I'm going to skip this area. I just wanted to go through like two of our products today. The one that we do for all our clients is we set up a zoning and land use database. And we do that because almost everything in a city normalizes back to a location. And like, what are the most common questions that you get at an intake counter? What can I do with my property? What zone am I in? Can I open a business, or can I build this kind of building? So a little bit of permission structure, a little bit of form-based information, and then a lot of informational data, like what zone am I in? And if you're in Denver, this is a one-page PDF that's got about a 10-day turnaround to do. Or you can go and look at a very complicated, multi-polygon, multi-colored zoning map, and then look at the individual zoning districts that you're in. It's a lot of legwork and a lot of legalese. And we think we've built a better experience. So I'm going to sort of demo what we've done for San Diego, who's a client, both they use our zoning portal and our business portal. And in the city of San Diego, what type of business are you planning to open is the question that's asked. And one can, type in something like bed and breakfast and get to the formal use code, or they can type restaurant and get to the formal use code of eating and drinking establishments, or they can type yoga and get to, private instruction, or they can type co-working and get to professional office. Like, we build libraries synonyms around the formal use codes. And then we're also normalizing all these use codes to the other classification systems in the city. Once you lock in that you're a bed and breakfast, you're going to grab the ITE code for lodging, low density. We're going to grab the occupancy class for building. We're going to grab a NAICS code and SIC code for finance. So much like how we asked a street address and get a parcel ID and a zoning designation, or if you figure out if it's an overlay, it's the same question here. Like, what are the natural language terms that people use to search for? How do we normalize that to the specific codes? And then, how is this treated across town? So once you punch in bed and breakfast into the site, we draw a map of every parcel in San Diego. And you'll notice over here on the right-hand side, there's a bunch of kind of secondary questions, like you've got 6 or more, 9 or more, converting an existing structure, are you in a historic building? Each one of the answers to these questions change the actual permission structure for where this is allowed in town. So as I answer questions underneath, if I've got between 3 and 5 rooms, I go from being a principally permitted use in this district to needing a neighborhood use permit, which is a more administrative review process. And this is just, we think, a much better interface to figuring out where and how people can invest in a community. And then at the end of that, when they click learn more, they've got, it's permitted with limitations at the street address where they clicked or they typed in. It's in the zoning district. Here's a description. Here's all the overlays it lives in. Here's a use description. And you may need to, follow up by submitting an inquiry to the zoning administrator. So no PDF form. You're not filling out that application form that I showed you from Denver. You're doing all of that by interacting with a web tool, which is, an interface that you think people, come to understand it. And like, we're really getting very quick at this. Like, a typical implementation of this even for these large cities like San Diego, like Oakland, like Sacramento, or Orlando. These are 3-month projects where we go through and basically start treating your zoning code much more like a database instead of a collection of codified rules. And we dedupe things. We do data analysis of where things are defined or not defined. We figure out, you spell, it's animal clinics in one area, it's dog kennels in another, it's just kennels in another district. Like, we normalize that. We build libraries of synonyms around each one of these, and we just use data science to try and bring some rigor to the space so that it's a good qualified tool for getting people through the process. And then our other product that's probably of interest to this community is the business portal. It builds on that zoning and land use layer and adds a permit database on top of that, so that you get an experience where you're supplying information to this web tool, and it's actually estimating out the total number of permits that's needed, the cost of those permits, the teammates that you need to pursue this project, and getting you handed off to the individual departments, like with either application forms in hand or submitting the information directly into these backend systems for these communities. And we find that for in community that has a relatively healthy commercial property market, this becomes a very powerful tool for economic development to add into their suite of services. Because it's basically like a permit scoping and project estimator tool that's specific to the rules and regs of the community. So for San Diego, the experience is, first the name of the business. From there on out, we're going to refer to this business by this business name the entire time. Of course, we can do this in Spanish or Khmer or any other language that you need to throw at us. First, select the business type, answer the secondary use questions, trigger a map. You can click in on this map or type in the upper left-hand corner of the address. Once we have a parcel focus, we can show you the discretionary entitlements that happened on this parcel in the past. And then we start collecting details about like what you want to do in this neighborhood. So, we're collecting the employee counts, the number of owners and officers, the gross square footage, and we're starting to be able to trigger out permits that are going to apply to this project. So initially it's just an alarm permit and a zoning use certificate, but then we can warn you that you're in a bid and that you're going to need a business tax certificate as well and a fictitious business name, because we figured out that the owner's last name is not involved in the name of the business. Then we can show you that you're a designated historical resource. That's going to change the level of staff review for this when you're making alterations on the building permit. And we're also going to figure out if there's a change of use on the property and calculate all of the facilities financing fees, the traffic impact fees or development impact fees that may apply at the specific location. And again, the applicant is not aware of the hardcore mathematics and data science that's happening behind this page, but my staff has gone in and normalized all of the ways the businesses were classified over as facilities finance to the zoning use code classifications. And we figured out in San Diego's case, there were 62 different neighborhoods for development impact fees, all codified and put into our permits database. So I can say it used to be a convenience market, I'm turning it into a restaurant, and calculate out the development impact fees. And the same thing for like the type of work that we'd be doing on the construction side. Like, I've opted into an electrical process or a plumbing process. All of a sudden we can start figuring out it's $305 for the sign permit, or it's $878 for the mechanical permit. There's going to be traffic control because we're doing work in the public right away. The building permit itself is going to be $5,100 in San Diego for basically a $500,000 project. And then we know you're going to need a contractor. These are estimates, but we're gathering up all the things that you need in order to have a conversation with your banker or your finance people about actually financing this process. And like you'll notice, we're doing like the sub fees on general plan maintenance, mapping fees, records fees, down to this restaurant tenant improvement. These are the estimated inspection costs or the estimated plan check costs. are all going into this, and we're introducing with this language up top, sort of why this permit applies, what are the costs, what are the processing times, the dependencies between permits, and basically like taking the entire pre-application meeting that used to be multiple meetings with multiple departments, and pushing that online, removing that staff cost, and getting them the best estimation for what this process is going to look like on the front end, so that they're not learning about this project kind of in stepwise motion as they go through and try to do applications. So, once it's submitted in, it can be reviewed by staff. We're not offering like a full workflow, permit management system yet. It's really just about like scoping and handoff. And we've been really lucky to see it scale. I think we're in about 18 states now, all over the West Coast, which is where we started growing significantly in kind of mid-Atlantic and Florida regions. And we did just open an office in the Front Range this year in Boulder. I got a couple of folks working out of there. Our projects are, particularly for smaller cities, they tend to run pretty quick. It's not custom software, it's configuration of a platform for communities, and everyone that works on my team has worked in cities before. So we do data collection first, spend the first 2 months working on zoning, the next month and a half basically building the permit catalog, and then it goes into like a testing and launch phase. And typically within 4 or 5 months of getting a contract with us, you have a tool up and running and ready to go. Some good examples that we had was Boise was like 3 months, Orlando was like 4 months. Salt Lake City is going really fast right now. We should be done sometime in June. They just started in March, and I mean, that's a very big, complex city in Utah. Our team comes from the public sector. There's no time and materials-based billing. This is an annual license, a one-time config fee at the beginning. And we are continually improving the software and pushing new features out. We're not going to do version numbers or seat licenses. Our city clients are really our partners in building this business together and really trying to change expectations around public sector service delivery and change expectations around the level of pain that permitting entails. I put this slide in kind of at the end of my deck because like we've worked with all kinds of cities, and like this is what really makes it work is we do need like support and buy-in from a high level. We need a couple of subject matter experts that my folks can talk to and have very nerdy conversations about processes and fees and what are the little hacks that staff uses on a daily basis to get people through the process. And then we really try to keep the time commitment on the staff side down to a minimum. For the subject matter experts, like, it's like the outside 10 hours to review kind of the fee schedule and triggers for their area. Really the main time commitment from the city is going to be a single point of contact that we coordinate through the project manager. And that typically is an economic development professional as part of their job. And then, where it really helps these sites is to have, PR and marketing support at the end. If you're already working with somebody like Golden Shovel, making sure that we're well integrated with the economic development marketing message. And then this is, another tool in the tool set for ED's professionals to make their towns business friendly. And, we didn't talk about it today, but we provide a similar experience for residential projects and special events projects across the country as well. So that's kind of an overview of what we're spending our time on, and I'm happy to use the balance of today's time for questions or comments from the audience.
Thank you, Peter. We will open it up for questions now. So please use your questions panel that is available in your GoToWebinar control panel. We already have a question. Well, it's more like a request, Peter. Someone is asking if we can just go back to slide 11.
There you go.
Okay. Not sure if there's a specific question related to this slide, but anyway, just keep in mind that we are recording this webinar. Peter will be also providing us with a copy of the presentation, so for sure we can share the slides with you. Okay. Okay. They just want to grab a screenshot of the slide.
Okay.
Okay. Let's see. There's another question. How long does it take to build a business portal?
As I outlined towards the end of the presentation, for most communities, we're able to launch within 4 to 5 months of contract execution. For the larger communities like Boston was a little longer, Charlotte was a little longer because we included all the county processes as well. But yeah, for most of the small to mid-sized communities, it's a pretty normalized process. We have a standard set of operations that we do, and we track all of the projects in Basecamp so that you know exactly which steps my staff is working on as we configure each part of the meeting code for the interface.
Okay, thank you. And one more question is, in terms of investment, is this affordable for a small company or startup?
We typically contract with public sector agencies. There's no cost for end users. Like, it's a free service to be an interface to the city.
All right. Thank you. Okay. Do we have any other questions that you'd like to ask Peter while we still have him online? Please use your questions panel that is available in your GoToWebinar control panel. Okay. One more question for you, Peter, is cost platform to purchase for small community.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question, please, Victor?
Yeah, what will be the cost platform to purchase for small community?
To license the platform, it's on an annual basis, and costs are based sort of on the size of the community, its permitting volume, and its place in the country. So I would suggest that they contact me at peter@opencounter.com and we can talk about numbers. I will say that it is intentionally priced to be affordable for small and mid-sized communities. One of the things that I noticed working for a town of like 50,000 was that New York City could set up a site like this, and do a custom implementation like NYC Business Express. But there are very few things on the marketplace for the majority of cities, which are less than 100,000 people. In fact, the long tail of cities is most cities are less than 25,000 people. We typically, most of our cities are kind of small to mid-sized. And yeah, again, I'd be happy to work up a pricing proposal for anyone who's on this call who's interested.
Great, thank you. Okay, it seems like we didn't have any other questions. So I don't know if you have any final remarks, Peter.
No, just thank you for the opportunity to talk about what we've done. We've scaled this fairly rapidly over the last couple of years. And we are, really, really thankful for this opportunity this morning, and hope to hear from some of you that were on this webinar.
Great, thank you. So I would like to thank you everyone for your time, and a special thanks to Peter for putting this presentation together for us. We will have the slides and recording of the session available for you, so if you would like a copy, please email me at vperez, that's VPEREZ, at goldenshovelagency.com, and I will provide you with access to the slide and the recording. Of course, we look forward to our next webinar, and we'll send invitations out soon. Once again, thank you everyone, and have a great day.